Thank you so much. I'm Chris. I'm an alcoholic and recovering drug addict. Thank you so much, David, for asking me to come in here and do this. Always great to be of service. Like I said, my name's Chris. I'm a very blessed recovering alcoholic and drug addict, and what it was like in the beginning, man, it was crazy. It was a party, just all in innocence. I was a kid. I was a very young age when I first started. Like I said, it was just all in fun. I didn't think anything about it. I don't know exactly what age I was. A lot of it's still all a blur to me. I was at a very young age when I started drinking and partying and stuff and experimenting even with other things. Yeah, my drinking led me to do a lot of stuff that I never would have imagined I would have done. I really remember the beginning years of high school and like the ending of middle school into high school and stuff. And I was pretty young. I was a teenager when my parents split up. I actually went to live with my uncle, who is actually one of us. And it really started hitting me hard. I really started getting into all kinds of crazy stuff, running around, just doing whatever I wanted to do. And, I was probably a freshman in high school. And, that's when things really started getting crazy for me. I was in trouble at 15 years old. I got caught doing some stuff I wasn't supposed to be doing with another substance. And that kind of started trouble with the law and everything like that, which progressed over the years once I got off probation for all that stuff. I ended up, later on down the road, 18, 19 years old, getting in trouble for drinking and possession of alcohol and underage and, just one thing after another. It happened in Tennessee and then it happened in Virginia because I'm actually from a little small town in Virginia. And if any of y'all know that, it's right on the Tennessee state line, very small town, so there wasn't a whole lot to do, but party. But I found out later in life, everything comes so much easier drinking and doing drugs. It was so much easier to make friends. It was so much easier to start a conversation with someone I didn't know or talk to girls or, all these things. Like even in school, I found it a lot easier to slow my brain down and just focus by, smoking marijuana and drinking. Like I said, I mean, it wasn't really bad, and it was just all in fun and having a good time, and I didn't really think nothing of it, like I said. So even getting to the point where I was getting older and getting in trouble, and I never really thought anything of it. Some years gone by, and I ended up getting up in age and started getting into 11th and 12th grade and getting on some pretty hardcore drugs. I mean, some really hard stuff. My drinking led me there. Either no matter what I was doing, I still had a bottle of alcohol next to me or in my hand. And that was my way of coping with everything. Whether I was going and needed to slow down, I would drink. And, I almost didn't even graduate high school. And then later on into my senior year, my teachers told me like, you've missed so much school. You really need to sit down and take things seriously and get some work done. So I ended up spending like the last couple months in school suspension just catching up on work to graduate, with a diploma and walk across the field, which is, every high schooler's dream. I mean, that was like the thing, prom and graduation. And so I did, I buckled down. And once I graduated, man, it was back to full throttle. I was drinking just about every night to oblivion, and it was good. I mean, I finished out all my probation, or at least I thought. A lot of it come back to bite me in the ass later on, and we're talking about 2012, 2013. So I ended up leaving. I left home. My brother was down here in Savannah, Georgia. And, I was pretty much getting promised a new life, a do over, completely start fresh. And I packed my stuff up in 2014 and I left and I came down here and started a life. I had a suitcase and a flip phone. I was sleeping on my brother's couch, him and his girlfriend at the time's apartment. And they had a roommate, so the other room was occupied. So I was just sleeping on the couch. Didn't have a vehicle. I would walk around and put in applications at jobs close by that I could get to on foot, just trying to make something of myself. I was 20 years old and I had high hopes for myself. And, everything just kind of progressed more and more. I wasn't doing much of the hard stuff anymore, but I was wilding out every night and most of the time in the mornings too. I couldn't even really imagine life without that stuff because I had doing it for so long. I couldn't even wake up in the morning without, getting high and at least drinking a beer. But yeah, I ended up getting a job delivering beer in Savannah, Georgia for a local company. And Was doing that when I turned 21. As soon as I turned 21, June 22nd, 2014, literally July, I was delivering beer and was almost doing it a whole year. And I had met this young lady at a restaurant that I was working at just to kill some time until I turned of age to get this job. We were getting pretty serious. We were really happy together, and we went some about a couple. I literally met her as soon as I got the job, and the next year, 2015, I was supposed to meet her parents July 4th weekend of 2015, and my brother called me up. We had a car at the time, but we were sharing the car. And he said, "Hey man, you come pick me up at work. You work down here on Tybee Island." I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'll be there in a minute." So I got there. He got in, and we start driving back off the island. He's like, "Man, let's stop by Huckapoo's and a little local pizza joint here on Tybee, and let's grab some pizza and something to eat, and then you can take me home and drop me off." And he knew I told him that I was meeting her parents for the first time. I had a couple beers. I think I had about 6, 7 beers, and little plastic cups, and I was feeling all right. But he was thinking I was doing a little better than I was. So he's like, no, I ain't gonna let you go back and meet her parents like this. Let's go out to the pier where the fireworks and stuff are supposed to be at. Meet up with a couple of buddies real quick. And you can sober up, and then we'll leave the island, head back outside Savannah. And well, we got out there, and of course, it was just nothing but a huge party. And, that was my thing. I'm right at home. Let's go. And everything just left my mind. I started seeing the coolers of beer and moonshine and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I got obliterated. And I remember waking up from my recollection a couple of days later in a hospital, not knowing what the hell happened, why I'm in there. I'm on a ventilator. I got a neck brace on, my eyes swelled shut. I had no clue what happened. Come to find out, like some things happened between me and some other guys. I ended up getting into it with them and could hardly even hold myself up, much less swing a punch. And I ended up getting knocked out. And I fell and hit the corner of a picnic table, busted my head wide open, man. I was laying on the ground leaking out. My brother come out of the bathroom and seen me, and by that time I was already having convulsions and stuff, going into shock, and I had lung failure, and it was pretty bad. But I ended up getting better. It took some time. I really started to think about my alcoholism, or my alcohol consumption. Really, I didn't really think, anything of it, but before until then. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna quit drinking. So I went 3 months, went back out. Halloween, I was supposed to be the designated driver. Ended up, my brother offered me a beer, and I ended up taking it. I just couldn't help myself. Once I hit that, and it was just off to the races. And I started drinking like crazy. Some time later, it just progressed more and more. And this is, like a 5 year span. I'm 22 years old. I just couldn't imagine. I knew that I had to figure out a way, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it how I was going to do it. I like to call it my 5 years of scientific experiments because I did. I experimented with anything and everything you could think of. Hell, I was even sticking a needle in my arm at one point just because I was so out there and just, it was brutal. It was really brutal. It was probably the worst 5 years of my entire life. And I went 3 of those years actually not even touching a drop of alcohol, experimenting with a lot of other things. And I ended up going out of town on a guy's trip, celebrate. It was coming up on my 3 year anniversary of not having any alcohol and stuff. Went down there and killed an 18 pack of near beer. It's so good. Why not just drink a real one? That stuff ain't even doing anything for me. I thought it would if I killed an 18 pack, but it didn't. I was just bloated and felt nasty and disgusting. So I started drinking real beer, and a lot of that weekend is just a fog. It was awful. I was sick the whole next day that we were there. The second day we were there, and the day we was leaving, I was sick as shit, man. I don't even know how I drove all the way back from Jenny Springs the way I was, but I was just going to come home and hide it. No one had to know. I wasn't going to tell anybody. The guys knew that they wasn't supposed to say anything, so I went a couple more months after that. It got to the point where I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I even during that 5 years, man, I was trying to go to church. I was trying to do, these 12-step programs in the church and did that like one meeting and just all these things. But once that weekend happened with the guys, it was all I could think about is when I could sneak and get the next drink. And When I did, man, it went from once every week to twice a week to every night. I drive truck for a living. I was getting out of my truck to head home. I would stop at the liquor store right down the road and I would just start slamming everything I could slam without getting sick. And I would drive. And if I didn't start feeling something, I would pull over real quick at another gas station. I would get something else. I would just start drinking. I couldn't stop. We ended up moving to the place where we're at now, but we were a building over and suffered a lightning strike to our building and set fire to our building. We was displaced out of there into a hotel, and we did about a week there. And the very last night, I was with my fiance and my son. This is after COVID and everything started. I mean, the world was just crazy as it was. So, I mean, it gave me even more of an excuse to drink. I got home late. I got to the hotel late, and I said, fuck this. This is boring. I'm going out to the bar. They're asleep. They'll never know. I went out. I had my very first alcoholic outer body experience. I wasn't even really that drunk, but I was getting there. I was drinking pretty heavy, just mixing everything together, just trying to get so I could get back before anyone woke up. When I had that outer body experience, I was actually in the floor with this young guy. I'm probably, I guess I was about 27 at this point. I'm in the floor with this young guy, and he had fainted. He was standing at the bar in front of me and these other people, and he fainted. And when he passed out, the back of his head hit a pool table, busted it wide open. I immediately got down there and I'm like, I see myself. I just remember looking down on me, whole just thinking like, dude, this was you. This was you, and it could very well been you again because of your drinking. I made sure that the dude got into an ambulance safely and hauled ass back. I stopped at a couple gas on the way, got some more beer, knocked them down, threw the bottles out. Just living life on the edge, man. I just didn't give a shit. I had a CDL driving truck and didn't care, and I got back and I was fumbling all around, falling all over the place, and woke them up. And I remember getting into a short little discussion, and then that was it. I woke up the next morning. I was by myself. They had left, went to her folks' house, and that's when life really hit me. I got to thinking that, this is what the rest of my life's going to be, drinking. I'm going to be alone. I'm not going to be wanted to be around by anybody. It was really hard. I don't know how it hit me harder than any other situation in my life that happened, but it did. I was alone. I was helpless. I was completely hopeless. I mean, there was just no hope in me whatsoever. And we got to talking and on the phone while she was out of town, and she had mentioned something about AA. Like, it's worth a shot. Fuck it. I've never tried it. I always think when people talk about last house on the block, and I'm just crawling and there's this one last house and I just drag my body up the steps and knock on the door, boom, boom, boom. That was the clubhouse that weekend. Hey, why not try it? And I went to my first meeting the next day. I drove around that day looking everywhere. I was still so fucked up. I had no idea what I was doing on the internet. It was awful. I went to a men's group that evening, afternoon, and then went to my very first Zoom meeting. After that, I think it was at 7 o'clock that night. You know what? I've been ever since. I've not went anywhere to even come back. I've stayed. I mean, Zoom. This was literally August 8th of 2020. My first meeting was August 9th. And I don't know how. I don't know if it was the morning that I woke up or what, but the obsession to drink has completely left me. I mean, I've not even thought about it. I've romanced. I'm not gonna lie. I've romanced about it I've seen it on TV, and I just turn that shit off. I'm like, nah, I don't even want to see that because this ain't even right. Me thinking what I'm thinking, but as far as like the obsession, I've not had the desire to pick it up at all. And like I said, the eight, it'll literally be 2 years, and this program works. I could honestly say 29 years old today, and this program works for me. I go to my meetings, and even today, I think, what was it? Wednesday, I went to four. I have nothing else to do. I mean, I got a family and stuff, but I drive truck. And then Wednesdays, I go to an in person meeting on Tybee on the beach. And I do my meetings. I've done my work. I get with my sponsor, done all my steps as thoroughly as possible. I mean, I almost killed myself over step four because it was such a pain in the ass. And, I did it. And then step five, I literally was shaking, man. I couldn't even speak. I was so scared, to tell this dude what all I've done. I'd done it. I'd done every single bit of it. It was just like, it was so freeing, and I've actually done a couple other step fives with another dude, and this is it, man. This is where it's at. Like, I'm telling you, all my science experiments I did for 5 years, none of that shit works. I'll go ahead and tell you, if you think it will, just go try it, and I guarantee you, you'll be right back in here. It's just not even worth it. It's really not worth the pain. You're better off just going and heating up a stove and laying your face down on it, because it's going to be a lot better for you than going out and trying the shit that I tried. Listen, I just want to thank each and every one of y'all that are here tonight, because you're the reason I'm here. I can't do this alone. I'm 110% powerless over alcohol tonight. And thanks for having me.